He's as precious as apple pie. Those were the words my mother-in-law, Nancy, used the first time she saw my newborn son. Her eyes sparkled with adoration as she gently cradled him in her arms. It was obvious she loved him deeply. She'd voluntarily step in to take care of him whenever I was at work, never once complaining. At the time, I thought I was lucky to have such a supportive mother-in-law. But looking back, I should have seen the signs. The way she held on to him just a little too tightly. The way she looked at him like he belonged more to her than to me. Her love wasn't just affection, it was obsession. My name is Emily. I'm 28 years old and work full-time. I married my husband, Liam, a year ago. After our wedding, we made the financially sensible decision to move in with his parents. Before the move, I felt a twinge of anxiety. Who wouldn't? But overall, my relationship with Nancy was fine, or so I thought. She was polite, even helpful around the house. She did laundry, cooked, and occasionally offered us tea in the evenings. But then the question started.
Every
Single
day.
Aren't you planning to have children yet? It's been a year. It's about time, isn't it? You're not getting any younger. What began as light comments turned into relentless pressure. It wasn't just curiosity. It was expectation, forceful and heavy. I tried to laugh it off at first, but inside, I felt trapped. We weren't in the right place financially. We were still adjusting to marriage, work, and life. Having a child wasn't a decision I could take lightly. Nancy didn't care about any of that. One night, after Nancy had gone to bed and the house had finally fallen silent, I decided to open up to Liam. She keeps bringing it up, the kids. Every day.
It's exhausting.
I feel like I can't breathe without being reminded I haven't given her a grandchild. Liam looked at me, surprised. I didn't realize she was putting that much pressure on you. I'm really sorry, Emily. She's excited, but I didn't know it was stressing you out like this. Finally, I felt heard. But what neither of us knew that night was that Nancy's obsession with having a grandchild would only grow stronger, and that once our son was born, her behavior would go from persistent to possessive. Liam promised he'd talk to Nancy about the constant baby talk. A few days later, he brought up something of his own. Not because Mom's been pushing us, he said carefully, but maybe we should start thinking about having a kid. I've got a promotion coming up, and my salary's about to increase. It might be better to have a child while we're still young, Emily. He wasn't pressuring me. He was just putting the idea on the table. I nodded thoughtfully. If your salary's going up, that would help. Okay, I'll think about it. But for now, please talk to your mom. I need her to ease up. This pressure, it's too much. Liam did speak to his mother, and surprisingly, the constant prodding stopped. She never brought up kids directly again, and for a while, the silence felt like a warm hug. With the pressure off, I could finally breathe and think. Eventually, I found myself genuinely warming up to the idea of motherhood. One evening, I said to Liam about that baby, maybe we should move forward with what we talked about. Considering our age and health, sooner might be better. We decided to wait for his promotion to be official. And when it was just a few months later, we began trying. Soon after, I found out I was pregnant. The news was thrilling. Liam was ecstatic. But no one was more overjoyed than Nancy. She practically vibrated with excitement, constantly checking on me, offering snacks, reading baby-name books, even rubbing my belly like it was a magic lamp. At first, it was sweet. But deep down, I knew she'd been waiting for this moment from the very beginning. Then came the day I gave birth. With Liam and Nancy by my side, I delivered a healthy baby boy. We named him Jackson. The moment I held him in my arms, the world changed. He was small, perfect, and ours. After the birth, I took parental leave. Those early months were a blur of sleepless nights and endless diapers, but they were also filled with magic. As a first-time mom, I fumbled through it all, but Jackson's tiny smile made every struggle worthwhile. Before I knew it, Jackson was nearly a year old, and my leave was coming to an end. I was ready to return to work, except for one major problem: childcare. Despite months of searching, we couldn't find a child care center with openings. It was frustrating beyond belief. Just as we were beginning to panic, Nancy stepped in. "You don't want to quit your job, do you, Emily?" she said gently. "I'm home anyway. Let me take care of Jackson. I'd just be bored without him." Her offer felt like a lifeline, and we accepted it with relief. For the next year, Nancy took care of Jackson while I returned to work. We planned to enroll him in preschool once he turned 3. Everything seemed to fall into place again. Nancy was consistent, attentive, and always affectionate toward our son. Thanks to her, I felt like I had the best of both worlds. Then, slowly, something shifted. Jackson used to light up when I came home. He'd run into my arms, chattering excitedly about his day. But now, he barely acknowledged me. He stayed glued to Nancy's side, clinging to her like a second skin. I tried to brush it off as attachment. He was with her all day, after all. But something felt off. I spoke to him, played with him, tried to re-establish our bond. But it was like he was drifting away. Then came the moment that shattered me. Jackson stopped speaking. The once bubbly toddler, who used to chatter about the color of clouds and his favorite toy cars, had fallen silent. Jackson's silence was no longer occasional. It had become constant. Our once chatty little boy, who used to babble and squeal with joy, now stared blankly and avoided eye contact. It was as if he had become a completely different child. I couldn't stop blaming myself. Is this because I went back to work? Is he feeling abandoned? Lonely? Liam noticed it too. One evening, he sat beside me with a heavy sigh. "Something's not right, Emily. He's just not himself anymore." I nodded. "I know. We need to take him to the hospital." But when we told Nancy our plan, she immediately pushed back, hard. "A hospital?
Why?
Jackson is perfectly fine. He's such a good boy. I'm the one watching him every day. I would know. Don't label him as sick." Her tone was sharp, almost frantic. And that was the moment something clicked. An overprotective grandmother should want to rule out health issues. But Nancy, she wasn't just dismissive, she was defensive. It sent alarm bells ringing in my mind. I looked at Liam and saw that same unease mirrored in his eyes. Later that night, after Nancy went to bed, Liam leaned over and whispered, "Do you really think nothing's wrong with Jackson?" Mom seemed way too aggressive. "I know," I whispered back. "I'm starting to think she's hiding something." We didn't wait. A few days later, Liam arranged time off from work. I coordinated my schedule. And together, we took Jackson to the hospital. Nancy was furious. "I told you he's fine." "This is a waste of time," she snapped as we prepared to leave. She wanted to come with us, but Liam gently insisted. "I think it's best if just Emily and I go." She didn't take it well. Her scowl followed us to the front door. But we left anyway, focused only on our son. As we drove, Jackson sat quietly in his car seat, eyes staring out the window, saying nothing. We sang to him, tried to joke, anything to spark a reaction. But he remained locked in his silence. Our hearts were heavy with worry. At the hospital, Jackson underwent a series of tests. We stood outside the examination room, holding hands, barely speaking. We were braced for anything: autism, hearing loss, a neurological issue. But when the doctor came out, his words stunned us. "There's no physical abnormality," he said gently. "Your son is physically healthy. His hearing, speech organs, and development all appear normal." Relief hit me first, but it was quickly replaced by confusion. Then, "Why won't he talk? Why has he changed so much?" I asked. The doctor hesitated. "It may be psychological. Environmental stress, trauma, or emotional suppression could be factors. Children often express inner turmoil through withdrawal." My chest tightened. Psychological? What kind of trauma could our toddler possibly have experienced? On the way home, Liam and I sat in silence. We tossed around theories, ideas, but nothing made sense. Jackson didn't go to daycare. He was always with Nancy. And suddenly, a horrifying question emerged in my mind. What exactly had been happening in our house while we were gone? As soon as we stepped through the door, Nancy was already waiting in the hallway, as if she'd been listening for the lock to turn.
"Well?"
"What did they say?" she asked immediately. We were told there's no physical issue, I replied carefully. Her face lit up with triumph.
See?
I told you so. You two are always overthinking. The boy is perfectly fine. We exchanged a look but said nothing about the doctor's suspicion of a psychological issue. That discussion would have only triggered her defensiveness, and we weren't ready for another fight. From that point on, Liam and I became more involved than ever. I made sure to come home early from work. Liam adjusted his hours, too. We bathed Jackson together, read to him, talked to him endlessly, doing everything we could to bring back the spark in his eyes. And slowly, something began to shift. Jackson still didn't talk much, but now he approached me with gentle smiles. He started reaching out for hugs again. Liam and I wondered if our busy schedules had left him feeling lonely. I even started considering quitting my job. One evening, I came home and found Jackson at the front door, waiting for me. His smile, when he saw me, was like sunshine cutting through weeks of storm clouds. I knelt and hugged him, holding back tears. Go wait in the living room, sweetheart. I'll be right back after I change. As I turned toward the bedroom, Nancy stepped out of the living room. I need to talk to you, she said in a clipped tone. About your son. I stopped, wary. Lately, Jackson has been showing a defiant attitude toward me. Did you say anything to him? Her smile was forced. It didn't reach her eyes. Something about it chilled me to my core. Defiant? I haven't noticed anything unusual, I answered, trying to keep my voice calm. And no, I haven't said anything. Her expression darkened. He's ignoring me. It's absurd. I've taken care of him all this time. Why is he rebelling against me now? She snapped. The woman who had fought us tooth and nail about taking Jackson to the hospital was now claiming he was behaving abnormally. My distrust deepened. Until now, I'd left my son in her care, comforted by what I thought was love. Now, I wasn't so sure. Though Nancy acted normal whenever we were home, my gut screamed otherwise. I had to find out the truth. That night, I rummaged through a drawer and found an old voice recorder I'd once used for work. Quietly, secretly, I placed it behind the bookshelf in the living room the next morning. I didn't tell Liam. I knew he might disapprove. And, obviously, Nancy wasn't going to know either. That evening, after I got home from work, I retrieved the recorder and took it into our bedroom. What I heard made my blood run cold. Nancy's voice, calm, manipulative, cruel, berating Jackson, gaslighting him, belittling him, telling him things no child should ever hear. My hands trembled. How could I have missed this? How long had this been going on? I composed myself just enough to text Liam. Come home.
Urgently.
I'm thinking of leaving with Jackson. I'm sorry for not telling you sooner. Listen to the audio. I picked up Jackson from the living room and took him into our bedroom. Nancy looked annoyed but said nothing. I watched my son sleep peacefully, my chest tightening with guilt and anger. Then I heard the front door burst open. Hey, Mom. What's the meaning of this? Liam's voice exploded from the living room. He had come running. I stepped quietly into the living room. Nancy looked bewildered, her face pale. What are you talking about? She asked, trying to regain composure. Jackson is sleeping, I said gently, placing my hand on Liam's arm. He took a deep breath, collecting himself, then motioned for her to sit. Wait, what's happening? Nancy asked, still confused. I placed the recorder on the table between us. I'm sorry, I said evenly. But we recorded you while you were alone with Jackson. Nancy blinked. What? Can you explain this? I asked and pressed play. The room filled with her voice, cold, cruel, and unmistakably real. Nancy's face slowly contorted from shock to rage to shame. And we were done pretending. It was excruciating to hear those words again. The recording played over and over, and every syllable made my blood boil. Do you hear that? I whispered to Liam, my hand shaking. She's telling Jackson to call her mama, even though I'm his actual mother. She's telling him to reject me, to cling to her instead of me. Liam remained silent, his face hard as stone. I could feel his fury building, but he didn't raise his voice. Not yet. Jackson had never acted like this before. He used to run into my arms when I came home, but recently it was like he was being torn between us, unsure who he should turn to. And now it was clear. It wasn't his behavior that had changed. It was Nancy's manipulation. Mom. Nancy's voice crackled from the speaker. I know you've been clinging to that woman, but you don't need to be so nice to her. She's not your mom. I am. You should call me Mama. Okay? My stomach twisted. She was teaching our son to call her Mama and telling him that I wasn't his real mother. I sat frozen, unable to speak. Liam, on the other hand, couldn't contain himself any longer. His usual calm demeanor shattered as he turned to face his mother. No, Nancy. You've got it all wrong. You think this is some game? To brainwash our child into believing that you are his mother. His voice shook with controlled fury. Do you hear yourself? Nancy's face flushed a deep shade of red. She mumbled something about just playing a game and trying to make things fun. But we both knew that was an excuse, one that barely covered the true extent of her manipulation. Fun. Liam repeated, his voice seething with disbelief. What kind of sick game is this? You've been feeding him lies behind our backs and turning him against his own mother. This isn't fun, Nancy. This is cruel. I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. You said Jackson was abnormal, but you're the one who's abnormal. He's just a child. Why couldn't you let him be close to me? Why did you have to do this to him? I cried, my voice cracking with raw emotion. Liam, his jaw clenched tight, looked at his mother with eyes filled with contempt. What you've done to our son is unforgivable. You've twisted his mind, made him doubt his own mother. We can't allow someone like you near him. There was a cold silence that stretched for what felt like an eternity. Nancy, realizing she was losing control, quickly lifted her head. Wait. What are you saying? You can't leave. It's going to be a disaster. Please forgive me. I didn't mean it. I was just trying to. Do you think a simple apology can fix this? Liam snapped, cutting her off. Do you know how much damage you've caused to our son? Nancy's apologies fell on deaf ears. She realized that she wasn't pleading for forgiveness anymore. She was begging us to stay. It wasn't for our son, though. It was because she feared what would happen to her own life if we left. Liam stood tall, his voice colder than I had ever heard it before. We're leaving. Whether you like it or not, whether you're troubled or not, we're taking Jackson and leaving this house. You'll never see him again if you continue this. Nancy recoiled, as if physically struck. She had always treated us like we were beneath her, but now she was begging for our forgiveness, for us to stay. But it was too late. I wiped my tears, trying to stay composed for Jackson, but my heart was breaking for him. He would never have to experience this again. Not with her. And then, with one last look at Nancy, Liam and I turned our backs on her. We didn't look back. As far as we're concerned, you're no longer family. With those words, Liam took my hand firmly and led me toward our room. We packed our things quietly, gathering up our sleeping son in our arms. Then, without looking back, we left the house. As we stepped out into the night, Liam turned to me, voice heavy with regret. I'm sorry, Emily. For everything my mother did, we should have noticed sooner and never left Jackson with her alone. I shook my head, tears welling.
No, Liam.
We're both responsible, but we will fix this. For Jackson. He nodded, resolute. Leaving behind the house and the chaos, it was clear. Our son's well-being came first. We hailed a cab and headed straight to my parents' home. I had called them earlier, warning them what was coming. My parents greeted us with open arms and warm smiles, ready to help. At my parents' house, Liam sat down with Jackson gently. He apologized softly on behalf of his grandmother and patiently waited for Jackson to speak. But our little boy remained silent, too hurt to share his feelings just yet. We just have to give him time, Liam whispered. Let him open up when he's ready. For now, keeping him calm is what matters most. And maybe counseling could help. I knelt beside Jackson, my heart aching. Jackson, it's going to be just the three of us now, Mom, Dad, and you. You don't have to worry anymore. My husband patted Jackson's head tenderly. And then, in a fragile whisper, Jackson said, "I don't like Grandma." I startled, my voice soft but filled with surprise. "Jackson, can you tell us why?" Both Liam and I held back tears as we waited. Slowly, our son began to share the fear he felt when Grandma's rage flared if he didn't call her Mama. The confusion of being told I was a wicked demon, the pain of being forced to choose between loving both his parents. His halting words tore at our hearts. We apologized over and over, promising him that from now on, it would be just us, always together. We poured all our love into him, showing him day by day that he was safe and cherished. Until we found a new home, we stayed at my parents' place. With Nancy gone, Jackson began to heal. His smile returned, his laughter brightened, and his small hand reached for mine without hesitation. Every day, I feel grateful to see the boy I know, the son I love, come back to life. Liam still receives messages from Nancy, desperate pleas for forgiveness and to return home. He doesn't reply. I've blocked her completely. Just recently, Liam went alone to his parents' house to retrieve our belongings. She was crying, like a child losing everything. But even then, I felt no sympathy. The only family I need to protect now is Emily and Jackson. That's what Liam said when he spoke of his mother. And I'm deeply thankful to have him by my side, ready to protect our son at any cost. Living together, safe, loved, and free from fear, that is true happiness. I do feel a little sorrow for Nancy, who lost us. But my heart is with the family we've built. We've cut all contact. We moved to a secure condominium, a fresh start. We've arranged for a relative to keep an eye on Nancy. She's said to be isolated and increasingly depressed, spending her days alone in that big house, crying silently. Meanwhile, Liam and I focus on Jackson. I left my job to spend more time with him. Together, we're nurturing his mental health. Thanks to that, our son is once again full of energy, mischief, and light. Even when he's a handful, I find it endearing. I vow to protect my husband and son with everything I have. I will make sure Jackson never has to endure anything like this again. Because watching him happy, that is my greatest joy. Please feel free to comment below if you like this. Remember to like and subscribe for more.